going with her from doctor's appointment to doctor's appointment, I experienced what I've come to call diagnose and adios, essentially. I mean, today if you get 15 minutes with a primary care physician, like, you're lucky.
Their light turns on, it's time for the next patient.
Exactly. And I get it. I mean, doctors are human, and they're under the constraints of the, of the insurance system, and they've just, like, it's a business for them as well, obviously. But from the standpoint of, like, patient care, that can be incredibly frustrating. And because my mom's symptoms were atypical, we ultimately had to book a trip to the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And so I just imagine the desperation that you would feel, like, living in New York City, where you have access to, I mean, at arm's reach,
So they weren't
Columbia.
doing enough, you felt, so you had to go to Cleveland.
We didn't even have a diagnosis. Like, my mom's physicians thought that these were all just a manifestation of depression. So there's actually something called pseudo dementia, where, if you're sometimes people who are clinically depressed will actually exhibit symptoms that might look like dementia, but once you tend to the depression, those symptoms clear up. So in my mom's case, and this is why that whole thing about 1 in 4 women over 40 being, on an antidepressant drug is, like, actually really shocking and really kind of upsetting. They thought that my mom's symptoms were ultimately just her being, just a symptoms of depression.
Right.
And so, but we knew that there was something deeper at play. And so, unsatisfied with that idea that it was just depression, we ended up booking a trip to the Cleveland Clinic, which is known for taking on these really complex medical cases. You present, they build a team around the patient, typically is what we understood at the time. And we ended up, booking a trip out there. And it was there that for the first time she was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition. So she was prescribed in that trip for the first time drugs for both Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And so I didn't know anything about either condition. Googling those drugs later on that night in the Holiday Inn that we were staying at, for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack. And that was the moment really for me that, like, everything, it was sort of like the record stopping at the rave. Like, for me, everything changed, like my career, things that I've been passionate about, even relationships, like everything kind of, from one minute to the next was put on the back burner. And I just became obsessed with trying to understand everything I possibly could about.
It's crazy. I was watching the documentary and I love it. I truly loved it. It's heartbreaking, it's educational, and it really, it's like almost sometimes the camera shots stay with your mom or you for extra beats. It's not quick cutting. It's like really getting inside of what's going on with your mom, with Kathy, with you. And it was sometimes difficult to watch, but it gave me an understanding of, wow, this is, if anything, this is what it helps you understand what to expect. And everything, every case is different, but I applaud you for that. I thought it was really amazing. And one of the parts of the documentary is you're talking with your publicist early on, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? Because your career is kind of starting to take off and you got a lot of things going on. And you just made a decision to stop everything and take care of your mom, right? How difficult was that decision to make? Because at this point, you could have, is the right word, delegated or whatever to, like, your brother or someone else, and you're like, I'm going to take the reins. I'm going to do this. And I have to put everything on the side right now, even though things are starting to happen for me. I've decided to do this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that scene resonated, because I mean, that was an important part of the journey for me. I mean, I was in my late 20s. So, I mean, that's like a pivotal point in your life, particularly as you're trying to, make sense of this career that essentially I was given, post college. And I had all these opportunities, but I wasn't fully satisfied with the opportunities that were coming my way. But nonetheless, I was in LA and I felt really proud that I had built this life for myself, and all my best friends were in LA and I had a relationship in LA. And but ultimately I did have to put it all kind of on pause to go back to New York. I couldn't just delegate to my brothers because, I'm the firstborn in my family. And so I had always had this incredibly close relationship with my mom.